Hello, this is Dave from the Wizard's Keep in Muncie, Indiana. In 2016, I wrote up a post on Facebook of my top, at the time, my top 40 games of all time. And then last year I extended it to top 50. And this year, I decided instead of writing it all out, I would make a video of instead. But this year, I'm going to do my top 60 games of all time. We'll see. It was about a year ago, this time last year, when I did my top 50 list. So maybe next year, the goal, we'll see if we can maybe extend this to maybe a top 70 or a top 80 list. But this year will be top 60. And to kind of get the ball rolling and start off, we're going to go with number 60. And that is Elder Sign. Elder Sign is a cooperative dice game, and how that works is you, on your turn, you have a character, and you're going to go on different missions, and throughout the, you're in like a museum that's kind of has lots of Lovecraftian artifacts in it, and different Lovecraftian Cthulhu-like monsters that are showing up, and so you're going to. On your turn, there'll be different challenges in the museum that you can go to. And when you go to that museum, or that challenge, they'll have like different symbols you need to roll on dice to fulfill that challenge. So you roll the dice, and then you can place, if you roll the proper symbol, you place it like a scroll or I think a gun or something like that. You can place that on to the challenge or the location, and then you roll again. Every time you roll and fail to place something, you're going to lose a die. So you keep rolling, either placing dice on the challenge or re-rolling until you either get all the symbols you need on the challenge, or you run out of dice and you fail the challenge. And there's different rewards for failing and different punishments for or different rewards for succeeding and different punishments for failing. And you can try to do that before a certain elder god, either like Cthulhu or Nyarlathotep or something, breaks through a portal into the museum. A lot of fun, and that is Elder Sign. Number 59. Now this is a game that doesn't necessarily get a lot of love. I don't see it on a lot of lists, and I kind of happened upon it by accident. And that's this tile laying game called Cacao. And now Cacao is a simple, like I said, tile laying game, sort of like in the vein of Carcassonne or something. But this one's a little bit different. You start off with a couple tiles already on the board, and you're going to have a hand of 3 tiles. And what you're going to do is you're going to place, there's certain tiles that have like, I guess what the tiles in your hand have workers on them, and you're going to place them on the board, and the tile may have, it's always going to have 4 workers on the tile, but that could be on each side. So that could either be maybe a worker on each side of the tile, or you could have 2 workers on one side, one worker on another side, a third worker or fourth worker on a third side, and then one side would be blank. So it's always, all the workers always add up to 4. But wherever you place that tile, that number of workers is going to be placed up against another tile that's going to generate some sort of point, either victory points for you. You might, it's cacao's like the chocolate bean, so you could either generate different beans for every worker you have placed next to a tile, or you could you could convert certain cocoa beans into chocolate, which you could use to get more victory points. It's a pretty simple game, which I like. It's very quick, it's very fast, and but there's a lot of strategy, a lot of maneuvering, a lot of jockeying for a position with other players where you're going to place your different tiles. But like I said, a game that doesn't necessarily get talked about that much, but one if you get a chance you may check out, and that's Cacao. My number 58 is kind of a newer game, but for me it's kind of, I wouldn't say a kingdom or Kingdom Builder killer. That name gets kind of thrown around. I would still love to play Kingdom Builder, but this one has kind of supplanted Kingdom Builder for me, though it's very similar, and that is Dogmas. How Dogmas works is, if you're familiar with Kingdom Builder, it's very similar. You get 3 kind of worker or meeples that you're going to lay on the board each turn. That they must be connected to each other when you place them on the board. But you also get draft for different actions each turn, and there's going to be different, where in Kingdom Builder it's all one board. There's different modular tiles that you kind of place together, but after the game started, it's everything's like one board. In Dokmas, you've got these different modular tiles that you can do draft different actions to kind of spin the tile. You can kind of maybe see a little bit here on the back. Whereas there's these different tiles here. So you may have to, when you place your camps or encampments or people or whatever, they have to be adjacent to each other, but you may do something. You may shift the tile in one place, and now you can start placing stuff on other tiles that's adjacent to them. Or you may place something that spins the tile around, so now that you can place adjacent to another section of the board. So eventually you're trying to get your people or get encampments on all the different boards. You get extra points for that, or each board has a temple on it, so you can get different points for that. It's a very abstract game, but very thinky, and lots of replayability just because the board's different each time, and that's a lot of fun, and that is Dokmas. My number 57, another newer game that I come to recently. That's why this list keeps getting bigger. I keep playing more and more games each year. And this one is Planet Defenders. Now, Planet Defenders is it's another game where you're kind of jockeying for position, or each turn is kind of like a puzzle. Because in Planet Defenders, what you do is you got these awesome little robots that come in here, as you can kind of see here. You know, who doesn't like these little cool little robots? But these robots are going to be on different tiles, and on your turn, everybody kind of controls the robot. Each person doesn't have their own robot. The robots are just on the board. And on your turn, what you're going to do is you're going to move one of these robots from one tile to another. And whatever tile you land on is going to generate, sort of almost like a worker placement in regard, because whatever tile you end on is going to generate some sort of action or generate some different resources for you. And then your opponent's going to go, and they may move the same robots. So it's kind of interesting where you're kind of guessing where your opponents might want to move. So you may move robots in a different place than you would normally do, because you're kind of thinking that you want to block something you think your opponents might want to do. So there's a lot of positioning. I like a lot of games that are almost like a puzzle. So where there's like a puzzle you're trying to figure out each turn. So you kind of look at the landscape of the board and try to decide, well, what action can I do here? Or what do my opponents want to do? And maybe I can block that or prevent that. And Planet Defenders does that quite very, very well. So it's a nice kind of light tile game where you're moving robots around. And that is Planet Defenders. My number 56. Now this one's a classic one. This one kind of does show up on a lot of lists, and for good reason. And that is Seven Wonders. Now Seven Wonders has been around for a few years now, and they've actually got another 2-player version called Seven Wonders Duel, which, spoilers here, doesn't make my top 60. It's probably somewhere between 60 and 70, so pretty close. But Seven Wonders I kind of place a little bit higher. One, bonus for originality because it came out first. Two, it's a card drafting game, so there's cards involved, so there's going to be some luck. And Seven Wonders Duel feels like it has a little bit more luck, which is why I kind of penalize it a little bit, because sometimes you have different cards face down in Seven Wonders Duel where you're not sure exactly, so you take a card and you reveal 2 new cards to your opponent and you just give them exactly what you want, no fault of your own. Seven Wonders is a card drafting game where you're going to be getting different sets for different things. You can kind of get military sets to kind of take resources from your opponent, or you're going to maybe concentrate on science and you're going to get exponential victory points for each different science technology that you acquire. But you can kind of mitigate a little bit of luck because you're drafting. So you're going to have a stack of cards and you're going to set around a table and you're going to pick one card, play and for an effect, and then pass the stack to the person that's sat next to you. So the person on the other side is going to pass you their stack of cards that they've taken from, and now you're going to draft a card from there, and so on. So it's kind of like a booster draft, like in a CCG, but the draft itself is the game. And this one shows up on a lot of different people's greatest lists, and for good reason, like I said, and that is Seven Wonders. This next game here is kind of part of a trilogy, and I like all of them, though some of them more than others. And this one is Explorers of the North Sea. Now, the trilogy would be Raiders of the North Sea, Explorers of the North Sea, and Shipwrights of the North Sea. Now, Shipwrights of the North Sea is a little wonky. It has a lot of take that elements. It has some card drafting, sort of like Seven Wonders, but a lot of the cards you're drafting have a lot of take that elements. So that one doesn't make my list. And Raiders of the North Sea, little spoilers, it actually is a little bit higher on the list. Right, not this video, in a future video you'll be seeing it. So right now we'll concentrate on Explorers of the North Sea, which kind of fits just in the middle. What's kind of interesting is there's those 3 games of that trilogy, all by the same designer, kind of same Viking theme, but all 3 of them are very different games, which I think is pretty awesome. And Explorers of the North Sea, it's a tile laying game, so you're going to get different tiles that you're kind of laying out. It's kind of different ocean tiles or different islands, hence you're kind of like Vikings exploring. And there's some things you can do to get victory points. One is controlling different islands that once you get victory points for, sort of like Carcassonne, where in Carcassonne you're going to get victory points if you like complete a city. And Explorers of the North Sea, you're going to, if you have the most Viking scouts on the island, and the island is complete at the end of the game, you're going to get victory points for that. But there's also a nice other twist, is there's also kind of a set collection, because on some of the islands you're going to have different animals. And if you've only got 4 actions a turn, so you kind of spend those actions to either move spaces, or you can unload your boat or load your boat. Your boat can hold up to 3 Vikings, or basically that's 3 spots, and this would be Vikings or animals. If you put like an animal in your boat, you always have to have at least 1 Viking to kind of, I guess, sell your boat. But you can also put animals in the boat, and if you sell those animals back to your home base, then you unload your animals, and then you get different points for different sets of animals. So you get if you get points for if you had like a donkey, a pig, and a horse or something like that, you would get different victory points for that. Plus, there's also different ports that you can raid, and you can get victory points for raiding different ports as well. So there's a lot of different things you're doing as you're kind of laying the tiles out and exploring, the North Sea. But it's a very good one. It's very different than some other games I've played, so I like this one quite a bit. My number 54. We'll be seeing a lot more from upcoming videos from this game designer or this game publisher, and that's because the individual named Ryan Lockett from Red Raven Games, he is everything. He designs the game, he does all his own artwork for the game, and he is also the publisher of the game. So not a lot of people at least do that successfully, and he's an amazing artist. All of his games I like because they all have a similar look to them. They all kind of feel like a set, so you can kind of if you like that style, which I do, then you're going to look at his games and they just kind of look pleasing to the eye. But he's also a really good game designer. And so at number 54, we have one of his smaller games, and that is Artifacts Inc. Artifacts Inc. is kind of a dice game at heart, but it's a kind of an engine building game as well. A lot of people will sometimes criticize dice games if a lot of dice rolling because it's very luck driven, and this one, it's dice, so there's some luck to it. But you can kind of mitigate a lot of luck with the engine that you build, because what you're going to do is because you can roll dice, get resources, use those resources to possibly maybe get different buildings or different things that's going to maybe generate more dice for you. So that kind of mitigates a little bit of the luck, or things that modify dice rolls. And it's not always a game about who rolls the highest, because you can always it's a dice placement game as well. So what you're going to do is you're going to roll your dice, and then you're going to take those dice and place them on different locations, generating different actions. And certain places you have to have certain numbers to roll. So there's sometimes low numbers can be good for certain locations if you're trying to generate different things. And you use those the different locations you place the dice to get different resources, allow you to buy different buildings, or maybe you can go exploring, which gets you different sets of cards that get you points. I like how it kind of starts off small, and you kind of build that engine, and so by the end of at the beginning of the game, your turn, maybe you do a couple different actions. You roll 3 dice or 4 dice, and you place a couple of those dice, generate a few actions, and you're like, okay, I'm done. But by the end of the game, where it didn't feel like you're doing a whole lot, by the end of the game, you're like doing all sorts of stuff. You're rolling, quite a few dice, and modifying the dice here, tweaking the dice there, placing it in different places, and generating lots of different actions. So I like how it kind of builds small and kind of builds up. It kind of feels like you're growing something or getting somewhere. It's very fulfilling. And that one, probably another one doesn't. He gets kind of overshadowed by some of his bigger hit games like Near and Far and Above and Below and Islebound. But Artifact Inc. is definitely one. I kind of checked it out just because it was Ryan Lockett. And I was like, I've liked the other things. I haven't played a game that I haven't liked with this guy. So I picked it up, and it, never it still didn't fail again. He made another excellent game, and that one is Artifacts Inc. Number 53 on my list is, I like a lot of worker placement games, and you'll kind of see that as this list goes on. Though I like a variety of different games as well, so we'll see some things not just worker placement. But this one, number 53, is another worker placement game, and that is Champions of Midgard. Now, Champions of Midgard, it's kind of a worker placement dice game, which is something that's kind of interesting. I like how on this one, you're like a lot of worker placement games are the same kind of concept. You're going to place your different workers in different locations to generate different actions or gain resources. Well, in Champions of Midgard, the theme of this one is you're all kind of members of a Viking tribe, and the Jarl, or the leader of the tribe, has died. So now you're kind of like battling or vying for glory, and those glory are victory points. But that glory, how it represents in the game, is kind of the glory to your tribe, so that you get the honor if you're trying to become the next Jarl. So whoever has the most glory is going to be picked by the tribe to be the next leader of the tribe. And how you do that is you can go on different raiding missions. Or you might defend the town, like the tribe. There'll be like trolls coming into town, and you can fight those off. Or you can go on raiding missions where you can go across the sea and fight even bigger monsters, which are worth way more glory. And it's kind of interesting because you've got workers you place to generate different actions, but you also have warriors, and warriors are dice. So when you go attack somebody, you're going to roll your handful of dice, and depend on different those different scores you get on the dice and tell you if you're successful or not. But the monsters you're fighting do damage too, and so every attack you do is going to damage the monster you're fighting and hopefully kill it. But any damage done back to you is going to kill your warriors as well. So you may lose warriors, which when you kill warriors, you discarding dice. And sometimes you can roll shields. So it's kind of interesting things as well, because you can get, like there's axemen, which axemen have no shields on the dice anywhere. But they have a lot more offense. So they're going to kill more things, but you're going to lose them as well as they're dying. Then you may also have like sword and shieldsmen. So the swordsmen, they may not just do as much damage as an axeman, but there's some shield symbols on the dice, so you can kind of protect your guys. So it's a little bit kind of a risk management there, or risk reward. And what you can always go back and get more warriors, which are more dice. So you just usually kind of place your regular workers. One of the things they're generating is maybe getting more workers or hiring more workers or more warriors for you. But it's going to take time, and if you're doing it inefficiently, then your opponents, they're going to be able to generate more warriors, or maybe they'll lose less warriors, and they're going to be able to get more glory. But another great Viking-themed game, worker placement game, and that is Champions of Midgard. Now, number 52 on my list. This one, like I said, two years ago in 2016, I had made my first top 40 list, and this one actually was number 9 on the list. So this one's fallen quite a bit, but it's mostly because there's just been better versions. Like I had said earlier with like Dokmas, you get that kind of phrase thrown around like X killer, where one game has come out and killed another one. Now, this one, number 52, is probably another game that's had tons and tons of killers. But I still enjoy this one, and this is kind of the original deck building game, and that is Dominion. Now, Dominion, like I said, was number 9 on my list in 2016. It was somewhere in the mid-20s, I think, on my list last year, and it's still fallen quite a bit down to 52. And that's just because there's better deck building games. Dominion kind of started it, and is still an excellent game. Still a lot of fun. It's a very good light deck building game. If you've not played deck building games, this was probably still the one to go to if you've not played a deck building game before. And it was even on my gateway list for that reason. But what other games did is they kind of took this Dominion deck building engine and kind of improved upon it. They added more theme to it, more variations, a little more depth. But Dominion's still a classic and still makes my list at number 52. And then the last one we're going to do today is, just a perfect example of what I was just talking about. This is another deck building game, and that is Marvel Legendary. So Marvel Legendary is a deck building game like Dominion, but like I was just saying, it's a game that took a lot of the mechanics from Dominion and just improved upon it. And added a better theme. Dominion, pretty dry, doesn't really have much of a theme, which is fine. I like a lot of Euro games. A lot of those don't necessarily have theme, but a good theme is also nice as well. And Legendary has an excellent theme. It's Marvel superheroes. And also another thing about Legendary is it's primarily a cooperative game. That's how I primarily play. You can play Legendary competitively, which is basically just kind of keeping track of who kills the most or knocks out the most villains or whatever, and you get different victory points for that. But I mean, there's a lot of other. If you're going to play a competitive game, there's probably other better competitive games to play. I prefer to play Legendary as a cooperative game. And how Legendary works, like all deck building games, you start off with, everyone starts off with the same kind of deck, and you've got, in Legendary, it's attack and money. And on your turn, you're going to be able to recruit different heroes and put into your deck. And some heroes have kind of a theme, like Spider-Man is all about having just a bunch of small characters, because if you play somebody is a kind of a weenie character, they it's pretty heavy. You know, put that one down. There's a lot of cards in there. But yeah, so Spider-Man has like if you play small costing characters, then you can draw cards. So you can kind of keep the cards themselves may be really cheap, but you can kind of play them and keep drawing cards and maybe play more weak characters and so on. So even though the individual cards are weak, they're going to add up to big money or big attack. I like how you can get wounds in your deck, and the Wolverine cards, very thematic for Wolverine, he regenerates, so you can take those wounds out of your deck. Wound cards, basically, if you get wounded, you shuffle a wound card into your deck, and when you draw, it's a dead card. It doesn't do anything, so it's just basically like you got one less card that turn. Well, Wolverine can kind of heal those, which is very cool thematically. And how Legendary works, like I said, it's a cooperative game. You're going to have different minor minions, or minion bosses, or villains that are coming out that they come out onto the board, and sometimes they'll kidnap a bystander, so you have to rescue that bystander. But if you generate enough attack, you can kind of knock that villain out, which kind of keeps things under control. But in the end, there's also like a major villain that you're inevitably want to be taken out, but that takes a lot of attack. So you have to, like all deck building games, tend to snowball. You start off kind of small, and as you add more cards, you're getting bigger cards, jettison out weaker cards. So now every time you draw cards late game, you're going to be all big attacks. So you kind of have to work up to that to be able to take out the big villain. But then at the same time, over the course of the game, there might be the villain might be having you get like plot twist cards, and if a plot twist card comes up or a villain scheme, then it may have some big negative effect. It may put more bystanders on all the villains, or it may cause you to discard cards or something like that. So you've got to, you're on a time limit to be able to get this done, or the villain's going to win. Even if you play it competitively, it's got to be somewhat semi-cooperative, which is kind of interesting, because the villain's still going to be doing all these things. So even if you're kind of racing against other people to kill different villains to get victory points, you're still going to have to work together some to defeat the main villain, because it's very possible, even if you're playing competitively, that the main villain is just going to win and then everyone loses. But like I said, I prefer to play it cooperatively, and that will conclude my list today. So that is my top 60 from 60 to 51. Now, over the course of the next couple weeks, I'm going to come out with some more videos as we keep counting down, probably 10 at a time, to try to count down to my favorite game of all time. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have any questions about any of these games, or any games in general, feel free to stop into the Wizard's Keep and chat me up. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you very much.